The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone Marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earl.
She moved from Omaha to her cousins in Santa Cruz. It was 1981. She had a 69 Malibu. Her daddy never made it back from now.
Welcome to The Marinade, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 154, and our guest is Willy Tea Taylor. Willy is a singer and songwriter from California, whose latest record, The Great Western Hangover, is among my favorites of the year. Willy writes songs that are bangers with rich characters and vivid settings. He's lived an interesting life, and that comes through in the tunes and in this conversation. We caught up with Willy via Zoom when he was fresh off the road for a far-reaching conversation. Everyone, it is my great pleasure to bring you my conversation with Willy Tea Taylor.
Just getting down. We rode a joint, drove around. I took her to a beach downtown.
Hey, man.
Hey, what's cooking?
Chilling. I'm excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, you hear me all right?
Yeah, you sound okay, I think. Can you say something else?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, that works. Man, thank you so much for doing this. I am absolutely enamored with the Great Western Hangover, your record, and I have been devouring it for a while now, and then especially in preparation for this conversation. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for liking the record. It was fun to make.
Well, good. Let's dive into it. One of the things that jumped out to me today as I was listening to it for the umpteenth time is like, man, it's sexy.
Thanks.
I don't know if you were aware of that as you were writing these songs or making the record, but it's sexy as hell. The grooves are sexy. The stories are sexy. And it just jumped out at me today as I was listening to it. So I don't know if that's my own mindset right now or what, but it seems to me like it's a very sexy record. And I wonder if you have any comment on that or thought about that.
I what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. It just was kind of a lot of it. Some of the songs were hanging on for a bit, and then I met a person who became a muse kind of, and we became really good friends, and we just kind of ignited each other's creativity, and that's kind of a couple songs are about her, like The National Treasure and Wild Buckskin. And I guess I was just kind of feeling very inspired and maybe sexy, I guess.
Man, that's great. Can we dive into that a little bit more? Because what a gift, right? To find a muse, that you end up writing such incredible songs like National Treasure, for example, about and Wild Buckskin. Was there a moment when you met this person? Was there a moment where you realized that, there was something was sparking your creativity? Or were you just sort of in it?
Yeah, it was like a brief meeting at a wedding, and it was up in Oregon, and the day I was leaving, the next day, it was only one day, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to know more about this person because I just met her. It was a brief meeting. And then we just, on the way home from Oregon to California, I wrote both those songs, National Treasure and Wild Buckskin, on the way. And I finished them right when I got to Oakdale. I wrote Wild Buckskin before I even left Oregon. And then I spent the entire drive whittling down National Treasure. And then we just stayed on the phone and talked a lot, and we really inspired short stories. So we would just send each other these short stories. And so the creative juices were just flowing, and she's a real wild, fun person that, you can never really tame She's just always, I just love her, and I always will. Like, she's a good friend forever. Like, our souls connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
I guess it was right before the pandemic. So yeah, it was right before the pandemic. And then I went to Europe and came back, and that's when, yeah, when I got back from Europe, that's when the pandemic was cooking, starting. So it was that summer of what, 18, or is that what that is? I forget.
That'd be 19.
Yeah, I think.
Because 20 is kind of when it all started. Well, I mean, 19, I think we now know
It
it was here.
was like the summer of 18.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that all went, wild. I was split up with a lady I was with, and so it was just a time that just kind of, I guess my soul needed to meet her and lift up, and find those songs again.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think because I know for me, and this has been a theme of conversation lately, is like, are you able to write when you're grieving, or are you able to write when you're in the muck? And for me, I'm not. Like, I have to deal with just the feeding myself and like getting up and moving, So if I'm going through something heavy, I don't make shit. but
Hmm.
but once I get on the other side of it, then I'm able to look at it with clear eyes and write. And I'm wondering if that's true for you too, or like you needed this person to get you there, or were you still writing prior to that?
It just kind of, it ignited. It was a time of wasn't grieving at all. It was a time of
Okay.
new, fresh. But like recently, I've been on the road for like 2 years. I got really wore down, and had a couple days off in Topsail Island, North Carolina, with my buddies, the turkey buzzards, and I was missing my children a lot. I mean, I do a lot, and I was ran down, and the only thing I could do was write a song to like, and it came out on that subject, and just being a weary traveler, and it made me feel good. It gave me some medicine to have a song to put all the feelings into.
Yeah, that's great. Is 69 Malibu by chance inspired by the same person?
No, 69 Malibu was I was just listening to a bunch of 80s songs one day. This was a while. I forget what year this was, maybe 17 or something. And I was just realizing all my favorite 80 power hits are D, A, B minor, and G. And so I was just joking around, and it was kind of floating through my head. Then I played this festival with my friends, the Rainbow Girls were there, and some other friends. And Caitlin from the Rainbow Girls, I just said, I want to write the 80s summer power hit. And then all I had was, and I met her at a rock and roll show. And then we just were drinking tequila and singing and putting some thoughts together. It didn't really go far that night, but when she was whittling out the thoughts of who this character was, like, so I spent the rest of the year just kind of writing that song, with so we wrote that. And then it wasn't a joke anymore. It was a real 80s power hit.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the characters, and I love everything about it.
I'm totally in love with the characters too, man. I'm when that line where you go, she taught me how to make love. I taught her how to surf. Oh, it's just like, what's not to love about those characters, right? Like, what's
Yeah.
not to be completely enamored with about those two?
You taught me about Kerouac. I taught her about Ramblin' Jack.
Yeah, hell yes. Oh my God. And those relationships, man, like that is such a real thing. I mean, I haven't felt that in a long time, but especially like in my, late teens, early 20s, and I guess going into my 30s even, there were so many of those moments, right? Where, I've been in a relationship for a really long time. So you hope to recreate those kinds of things in your own relationships, but it's hard to get the newness of that feeling where like you're teaching each other stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like the National Treasure, when we met, I mean, I guess it was like a similar brief fireball. And then that was what it was. And then we just keep in contact, So it's interesting how I wrote that before I met her, but it's kind of in the same vein, maybe I was stuck in that, but that is a powerful time when you find something that ignites you.
What other kind of things ignite you? Like you can't always just sit around waiting for this, like, conflagration of a muse. Like what, or maybe you do, I don't know, but what else ignites that creative spark for you?
When I it's more like I'll call them like reports doing school, so like if I give myself, say some characters are on a theme, like even if I have a Civil War song and I'll just write a report, I'll just think about whatever the situation is, if it's something, so I could give myself a task on a subject and then see how many words I could whittle down to make it complete,
I've never heard anybody say they write like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it almost gives myself a deadline too. Like I got to get an A on this, and so reality, and it's it's a lot to do. So I don't always, you know, I always think I should sit down once a week and do that, and that's the idea. But life gets moving and grooving. Don't always get to, but I hope to make some time this winter to do more of just inspiring things like that, subjects.
So what does that process look like? You give yourself the assignment, you are
And then
you like
I'll,
researching and writing? Like what does that look like?
well, I'll just I'll find something like a riff I'm doing now. I don't know what it's about, but I like the whole structure of it. It came first this time, and so I'll do this for a long time, and then I'll figure out where that's gonna go. And if I find something like that, and then, or a lot of times it's depending on the subject, if it's, definitely might need a minor key in there to like set the darker stage of if it's in that vein. I just fool around like that. That's kind of my move. And sometimes just a word pops out and then I'll just start writing on that word and then creating the whole song that out of my subconscious that word means, I guess,
I think that's fascinating that you don't really seem to have one set process. Like you had the songs that you said you wrote in the car, and then you're just giving that example of kind of like playing around with the riff, and then you give yourself book reports. There's no like, it seems like you get it from all kinds of different angles.
Well, I think that's the mentality I have about like everything in life is like once you put, a finality on a process and that's the only way it could go, then that's a pretty big setup for failure. But if you keep open to, oh, they come in every way, I don't even know what way, then that sets up for excitement and journey.
Yeah. So is that like sort of a life philosophy in general, or is that just a creative thing for you?
I think that's how I roll, man.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I don't work that way. That's really interesting.
Mm,
I'm kind of like real regimented and linear in my thinking. You've got me reconsidering some of the ways that I go about certain things. I'm going to kind of play around with that idea, especially creatively. I was just talking with I got the great honor this past weekend to interview Caitlin Butts, and she was talking about her process that I won't go into too much detail with right now, just because folks are going to hear the episode. But like, I was showing her my notebook and how most of my stuff is linear on here in terms of the things I'm writing, whatever it is, if it's a song, if it's a story, if it's show prep, it's all kind of organized. And then recently I've just kind of like, my life's been kind of turned upside down. And so recently I'm all over the page, like everything has changed and it kind of rewired things. And I feel like it has benefited every creative aspect. I feel like my podcasts have been better. I feel like I've been more willing to just like let go of things too, from that perspective. So that's really helpful to hear you say that.
yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man. I've never write anything down. I just like, if I write it down, my brain does something like it says, okay, we have that locked in. You don't have to remember it.
Yeah.
And so, and then I'll just go blank on it. If I write something down, I'm like, what did I write down, man? And then I'll read it and I'm like, I don't even remember how I was doing it. So my process in that has just been, I sit there and I have a file cabinet, I guess, in my brain, and I just keep shuffling through that until it's all pasted in there. And then I'll do that at least 10 times without messing up. And then it never leaves my brain, And I usually have to be alone. I'm not real good at opening the door when people are around. I like to just kind of do weird shit and experiment,
Well, that's interesting because you have quite a few folks that accompany you on this. Good friend of the Marinade, Jacob Anderson, is on National Treasure. And Anna Tivil, who I just got into recently, like, where the fuck has she been all my life? I mean, I had Terry Klein on the show, and he just like, when I got to at the end, I'm going to ask you what art has you inspired at the moment. And he just like, it's almost like his face changed as he was talking about her. And he was like, hey, I think the way he put it was, she's the best doing what we do right now, talking about songwriting. And I was like, I was so excited to see her on this record.
Yeah. And her partner, Jeffrey Martin, have you gotten to him yet?
Mm-mm.
Oh God, good Lord, man.
Really?
Welcome to that one. He's the best doing it too. Like, he's incredible. Like, he'll take you to places that are wild, man. He's such a songwriter.
That's awesome. He's on the song Bakersfield for folks listening, if you haven't listened to the Great Western Hangover.
On that one, just backup singing them.
Yeah.
But he's something, man. He's something.
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, and then Anna and him are partners, so it's like two of the most incredible crazy songwriters out there, killing it. And they tour together a lot, and it's just a powerhouse of. They're good. They're highly loved by all of us in the, they're crazy good.
That's great, man. Okay, so now that we kind of tied it back to some of the songs on the record, the Great Western Hangover, the National Treasure, that we've talked about quite a bit so far. There's a reference in National Treasure to the Bait and Tackle Choir, which is on Knight's Ferry, which leads off the record. Was this like, can you talk about that, like sequencing, and maybe how conscious you were of that? Like, how did that all come together? Was that how intentional was all of that in terms of the sequencing and the reference?
So I guess it was 2018 or 17. In California, I live on a river, and we got so much rain that year, and it was like after a 20-year drought or something. So a lot of things flooded, and our river was dangerous. And it's usually just a beer drinking kind of rafting river. So people were going into that river, and I think that year maybe 4 or 5 people died, and it's a small town, like a town of 100, and we get really affected by that. And there's a lot of beautiful musicians and just people there, and it's the oldest running business in California. It's the Knights Ferry General Store. It's never shut down since 1852, I think, and which is old for California, that's for sure. And right on the front it says, bait and tackle, and it's got a salmon, big wooden salmon. We got tattoos too. It's like,
oh, cool.
And we sit on the porch, and like I wrote the song Knights Ferry for us to have a choir to sing something together that was like dealing with the situation of how powerful our river is, and the sorrow these families are feeling as they're searching for them. And we just get on the steps of the old general store, and we just belt it out, and I dubbed it the Bait and Tackle Choir. And so a little different from the Tabernacle Choir, but
oh my God, that's so beautiful. I'm sorry that you all went through such pain, but that is such a beautiful story of community and of coming together. It also sounds like, we were talking about inspiration earlier. It sounds like that's the town that you live in. It just kind of is serving up inspiration for writing.
it really is. And it's a powerful place. And recently I went back there. We have a festival we throw there, and something even changed more, like the older we get and the generations that are coming through that community have a whole different mindset than the old ones. And there's a very cattle ranching, kind of a stricter, and now there's like this openness of artistic creativity, and it feels beautiful, and there's a lot of healing going on there and a lot of love, and it's pretty cool. It's a cool town, man.
That's incredibly inspiring. I mean, I think especially today, as I look at the world, and like my hometown, for example, is a mid-sized town in Central Florida, and I haven't lived there in a number of years. And part of the reason I left was because it is so sort of stuck in a lot of the negative parts of the past, and not a particularly progressive place. But I still love it, right? It's where I grew up, and so I have a hard time processing going home, because I don't want, like, I feel negativity, right, when I'm there. And it's inspiring to hear about a place that's sort of evolving and opening itself up, even though it may have been somewhat rigid in the past.
Yeah, that's exactly what's cooking. And it's a lot of work to love a community, and to put your neck out there and say, this is, I mean, it started with live music back, and it's like this, and then people are like, I don't know about all this, and it's like, no. And now everyone's like, oh man, thank you guys for bringing all this music. And it's like, yeah, we know we call it my friends Amanda Russell and Randy Russell, they're players out there, the Mandy Randy band, and Mandy and I always say, we got the memo, and so, like, when we believe in something, and we subtly, sometimes we go head first on it, and sometimes we subtly just unpoison the whale with love.
Oh,
You
that's so beautiful. Unpoison the well with love. Oh, I love that phrasing.
I didn't know what I was gonna say there.
Put that in the filing cabinet.
Yeah,
That's gotta come out. That's probably gonna come out in song. That's beautiful, man.
yeah.
Um, so a couple of things came up in my research that I'm really interested in. One of them is somewhat self-serving, and folks who listen know that I do this every once in a while, which is anytime I read baseball and anybody's bio or I catch an interview where they mention it or whatever, I'm an obsessive baseball fan. And so I'm interested in like your relationship with the game, and then also I'm interested in who you think the most creative baseball players of all time have been.
That's a great question. I am a baseball fanatic myself. Um, what was the first question?
First question is like what your relationship with the game is like. Like what is it about the game that resonates with you?
I think even at a young age, I think that's why I really was drawn to being a catcher, is that realizing that every time my dad would say, hit me right in the chest, and then you just play catch and try to play catch as pure as you can over and over and over again and throwing it where, and then that's just like communication in life. And that's like asking you shall receive, and treat others how you want to be treated. That's the game of catch, and it's just so wonderful. And there's something so powerful in being on a team where you could fuck it up, or you could, and we all do, and then we all like get back up and we all keep going. And it's just so neat. It's like a system of trees or something, how the roots come together, and the mycelium of it all is the philosophy of baseball. And it's how the groves of trees, grow. And that's a team. And I've always just loved a team. I love being in a band. I love being around people to, one, have the chance to not let them down, and to do the best I can. And make sure the grove is growing on my part.
Oh, that's
That's,
so beautiful.
that's baseball. It's just beautiful. Yeah,
All
that's
right.
my.
That's the best response anybody's given to that question. So who then are in your mind, the most creative baseball players of all time, and why?
Well, okay, that's a really loaded question. 'Cause it go through so many categories of creativity.
Yeah.
Bill Lee's one of my favorite as far as being a Yankee killer, and just the way he pitched and the way he had so much fun out there and just went against the grain just to enjoy the game of baseball and do some weird stuff. I like Satchel Paige is another one who, like the stories of when him and Josh Gibson would get up to bat and he'd send the infield and the whole players to the dugout because he was so confident he's going to strike out the greatest baseball player of all time. And that rivalry between them is pretty far out. I like old time baseball a lot. I like there's so many characters. One of my, like, the craziest story to me is the whole Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige and Jackie Robinson when they got asked to play the All-Star game, and Branch Rickey was scouting them. And it was Josh Gibson's scout saw him hit a home run with one arm. And he was like, what? I mean, this guy's arms are the size of, yeah, I mean, I love learning about him. But he was in the nervous hospital a few times, and that's what Branch was nervous about. Or he wanted to see the character. And then I guess when they were down at the All-Star game, he had a he would these fits where I guess he would just strip down naked and kind of just lose his mind for a little bit. And that happened. And so, and nobody, and Satchel Paige is just I mean, I think his character was so charismatic that Branch thought it's too much to integrate. Like so I think when he chose Jackie Robinson, you know, over Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige, the day that Jackie Robinson suited up for the Dodgers, Josh Gibson died of a brain tumor. And was this brain tumor that was like, one, either making him the greatest baseball player in the world to do things like his numbers and his just strength was insane. You know, I really like that part of baseball, and I like the Negro Leagues are so. I mean, the fun they had, and when you read about the games and just they were playing baseball and having fun. You know, I love that, and yeah, Rube Waddell, I guess I started the whole Negro Leagues, and it was very creative and very just beautiful. I like players like Timmy Lincecum too. I like the Freak. I like people who come out and challenge and do things differently. Not so regimented. Like, you know, I guess like I said, like there's a lot of ways to do things. You don't always have to do it the one way, you know.
Yeah. What a perfect bow on that. The first folks listening who aren't necessarily baseball fans, I was eating that up, by the way, but folks who don't follow the game necessarily, Billy's nickname was Spaceman. So that kind of helps you understand context. And go back to my conversation with John Snodgrass, folks, my second conversation with John Snodgrass, where he plays the song about Bill Spaceman Bill Lee. And Josh Gibson never got a chance, as Willie just said, never got a chance to play in the major leagues. He only played in the Negro Leagues, but the stories of his legend are unbelievable. Like some of the things that he apparently did and how great he was. So really, really great stuff, man. That was awesome. The baseball nerd in me is happy.
He's definitely in the conversation of the greatest of all time. That's damn sure. There's no question about that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Ohtani, I just love watching this guy. Holy cow.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's so much fun. I feel fortunate to be, you know, a fan at this time to get to watch what he's doing. It's truly incredible.
Yeah, it is. I've been so busy. I just kind of didn't even watch much of last season. I was just tired. And when I watch baseball, a lot of me comes out. I had my reserve tanks going, and I had to give up baseball a little bit.
100% understand. And it's such a commitment too. I mean, I'm a Reds fan and I watch almost every game, and it's such a commitment, right? It's 162 games. And when you're obsessive, then you want to watch the next one, and you want to watch the next one, and you want to watch the next one. And if your team happens to be competitive for the first time in fucking forever, like mine was this year, it's like, I was addicted, you know. It's like it's taking up hours of every day.
Hours of every day. Yeah, exactly. But I look at you, and I have such a group of friends there in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati, and I've did the opening day parade a few times when it was just the Reds playing, and then they would lose the opening day game, and then everybody be like, we're gonna suck, you know, like, and all the Reds fans. And then I was like, man, what's with you dudes? And my buddy Catfish said, let me put it this way, here's what it's like being a Reds fan. You and your brother, you're out in the front yard with your fishing poles, and you're waiting for your dad to pick you up to go fishing, but he never leaves the bar. That's us. We know he's not coming.
Yep. That's us. All right, we usually end on what you're getting down on, as I mentioned earlier. So that's the art that has you inspired at the moment. It could be music, it could be a TV show, painting you saw, it could be any kind of art, a book you're reading.
Um, yeah, I guess, man, I'm in the middle of a book now that's got my mind really going, called Way of the Psychonaut by Stanislaw Grof. And it's kind of his encyclopedia of his work that he did with psychedelics and psychology, and brought them together, and like was healing a lot of people and through breath work. And my mind is really on that one right now. I don't know how inspiring. I mean, it's inspiring to, think about my birth and my entire life and the patterns of life, and what am I going through? What am I getting caught up on? I enjoy finding betterment, along with it's wild, man. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I guess I'm feeling right now that I have I'm on a real balance of destruction and smoking cigarettes and drinking, and also finding, yeah, I'm inspired by life, I guess, right now, like and our journey and my journey, and thinking about my friends' journeys and my kids' journeys, and that takes up a lot of my time. uh it replaced baseball, I reckon. I've always had that journey mentality. And I guess when I hit my 40s, I'm going to be 48 here soon. I guess it was around 45 or something, I started noticing, wait a second, this is coming back through my life again. And then I started noticing the patterns of life, and how you get presented with a similar situation to choose door number 2 or door number 1 this time. Do you want to do it again, or do you want to find a new path down, like almost a do-over in a whole different weird way, if you know what I'm saying?
I think I do. I turned 43 on Wednesday, and I'm interested. I'm at a very unexpected crossroads in my life. And I'm interested in when you look back at that 45 time and the do-over kind of thing, right? Or choosing a different door, if you learned any lessons from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So is your birthday the 6th?
Yeah.
Oh, it's my son's birthday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He'll be 26. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Happy birthday, buddy.
Thanks, man. So what wisdom can you impart then from lessons that you learned looking back?
Well, I noticed that if like the same pattern comes up and I realize like what it is, I definitely process it way faster than 3 or 4 years. So it's like almost reintegrating what choice you made last time, and then kind of it's hard to explain, but I just know it as a cycle of some sort. And it's interesting, and I'm just amazed by it. I'm really amazed by